as I said from the beginning, this is a very diverse conference. We have doctors that have been with us a long time in the field of autism. We have scholarly people that have put together amazing storyline of the fields of cognitive science and psychology and neuroscience, and brought awareness to the field of autism about these beautiful concepts. And we also have clinicians that practice new, well, not new, these have been around, but applied to autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. So we have people that have come all the way. Jonathan came all the way from Scotland, and gave us a beautiful lecture that we all enjoyed, and also brings fresh views from the European Union and from the UK. And we have now people from Israel. We have Eilat, Almagor from Israel, and we have Baniel with a neuromovement method that is there together. They're going to give us a beautiful lecture about Feld-en-krais method applied to various forms in applications in autism. So come along and.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited and honored, and the lectures I just heard are so wonderful, and maybe at the end I will relate to them and how it relates to what I want to show you. I'm working with the Feldenkrais method for about, 40 years maybe. Before I was in university, I studied mathematics, physics, and then I did my PhD in neurobiology in Jerusalem. And then I went to study Feldenkrais after my friend Eilat, because I thought, by my experience with Eilat, doing the movement lesson for some time, that slowly I discovered that each time I do a movement lesson, I know at the end something I didn't know before. And as a scientist, I was still in my PhD time, I wanted to know when does it happen, this learning? Does it take 45 minutes to learn the new movement or do it better? Or is it a moment? And so I was playing with this timing, and then I decided to do the training in order to get some idea of what to do research about the nervous system. And I found myself staying with working with people and children in the method. I can talk a lot about my thoughts and understanding about what we do, but I don't have the time. So I want to show you a video of one of my students, who is a practitioner already, that we have a project working in schools for some years now. It's me, a professor of mathematics from Jerusalem University, who also studied the Feldenkrais method, but she's still in the university, Dorit Aharonov, and a person who was a principal of schools for many years until he retired, a Moishik learner, and we make this work and lessons of Feldenkrais with children in school, in primary schools mainly. We were for a time an initiative project of the Ministry of Education, but we had to divert from the Ministry of Education because they wanted us to scale this project, like that we have a recipe to tell people what to do. And the thing I want to show you now, that scaling as it is nowadays is not possible to do, although I think what we do is very, very important, and we can learn also the theory about this learning using movement, I think important. So not to waste time, this teacher here is Ohad Columbus, who is giving the lesson, and the child, Avichai, I think he's about 8 years old. He started working with him a few weeks before this lesson I showed you, and I wanted to follow this lesson. It was edited, the lesson was 30 minutes, and here it's 10 minutes, but have a patience to see what happens. So we start. Now, so there are a few booms like this, and look at the child and see that he changes the whole preparation for the next boom once he feels something happens and he can participate and see what happens. Look the head. You see now the head preceded the movement, and the eyes sometimes look at the feet, sometimes at gaze, sometimes at Ohad. And now watch it. And Ohad was going to pull him again, but he felt that it doesn't go as easily. I want to say that a few weeks before, I was watching Ohad giving a lesson to another child. We started working with children with autism, which are in the school 2 years ago. And it's more than their teachers were thinking that it will be relevant to them, quite successful. I was watching Ohad giving a lesson to a child, and the child was sitting in front of me and he tried to use his repetitive movement of the hands to lean on the floor in front of him. And the way Ohad did it, I sensed immediately that he thinks of it as an abstract idea, but he doesn't feel how the child from where he is could do it. And I told him, just leave the child for a moment and do yourself what you think is going to happen. And then he obviously did it with all his body and with balance relative to gravity, relative to the way he specifically was sitting. And then he went to the child, and immediately the child put his two hands in front to lean on. So what I want to say is that the communication between the teacher in Feldenkrais and the student is we're not expecting the teachers, the child to do the first step of communication with us, but we, with a skillful understanding of what the learning is and what movement is, we have the ability to make the step in communication towards the child. And this is complex, but possible. So now, Ohad pulled the legs, and the legs didn't want to lengthen. We don't know what Avichai thought on, didn't think about, but it stopped. And Ohad stops. And look. And Avichai starts doing something else. So Ohad goes with it. He says, open, 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 patuach, 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 סגור.
פתוח, 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 וסגור.
And now we went to another thing. You will see that the lesson is, and it goes right to left. Now, notice that as he takes the legs right and left, the child needs to balance with the hands, which a lesson before and 2 lessons before, it was very difficult for him. You need to believe me. But now, possible. Maybe we can move this thing. Just a second. Can I move this sign down? Yeah. Wait. I need to leave it here. And now, it's another revision of what they did the lesson before. And again, the child couldn't do leaning with the hand and shift the pelvis, which is important in many movements. But now, he's happy to do it, and he's joining him. And he goes this way. How much time I have? And then it looks like I deliberately left these pieces in between the beginning and the end. So you see that there are some moments of kind of waste in the lesson. There are not, but it looks like it's a different thing. The aim is not so clear. It is not. And the child is now turned and started crawling on his knees, which he couldn't do few lessons before. Ohad worked with him on that. And as a child walks, Ohad with his hand touches the spine, touches the pelvis to giving the feeling of the leaning on the knees. There are many, many details that we in Feld-en-krais learn it by our own expedition in that learning through movement. see this gazing in different places. Also, there is noise in the school sometimes. All this part of the lesson. And Ohad changed from pressing on the spine to directly on the pelvis, which connects the leaning better through the skeleton, and he continues the balance. Look here, for example, and the child put the hand, and next time you anticipate that that will happen, he put the hand a little earlier, and then he adjusts with the head and with the pelvis. And now Ohad follows the ribs, because that's part if you bend and how you bend, if it's soft or not. And I want to say at this moment that you can see in this lesson all kind of different organization of parts of the body in order to sit and balance, open the arms and balance. So there are different movements, different participations of the body parts, and different actions, but all of them have things in common. And if you look at babies, how they start learning to roll, to crawl, to then look around, every moment is a complex moment of all these senses and momentary aims and sometimes then later on talking. So the brain, by my experience, not that I measured it in the brain, the brain at any moment is a wonderful instrument or miracle to connect a rich experience of doing things with the muscles and sensing and relating to others and relating to the environment. But since every moment is so rich, the movement, the change from one moment to another can be quite different. And the teacher, in that sense, needs to know to go from one thing to another. You cannot do it if you have a subject or an object for this lesson that the child will know at the end that. You have in your back of the mind what happens, but you follow him, and then you see the child at the meantime look somewhere else, and maybe seems there are moments of wasting time, which are not. Now they're again going to this place on the mat where they did the opening and closing, which the child changed the movement. It was first lengthening and coming back, it was opening and this, but suddenly a different movement appeared. And that's also a characteristic of learning, what we call organic learning, like children learn, babies learn, is that if you have this rich experience of many modalities in the moment, it's very good to take what you've sensed and variate on it, modify it. And they go back to the lengthening. Where are the eyes? What happens now? Maybe important things inside the child. I want you to notice, I forgot that I wanted you to notice, so notice from now, that Ohad himself, the teacher, is moving always with his whole body. He sensed the changes in gravity, he sensed everything. It's a multimodality of connection between the two, which I think it's kind of empathy. But what I want to claim at the end of this lecture is that empathy is a rich experience, and you cannot do it only on the level of understanding that I don't know where it is in the brain, but it has to be like that. And you see balance coming in, and now I'd come with a variation which the child accepts very easily. Connect the hand and the foot and make the lengthening. Through that, as a teacher, you know that you can pull a little bit more with the arm or a little bit more with the leg and influence different parts of the spine, which might be useful more to crawling or more to that. It's knowledge that we have from our experience. I'm going to jump a little bit because I won't have time for the end and it's important.
חזרה.
So,
קדימה.
how do I go there?
עוד פעם. קדימה. וחזרה.
Forward and back, forward and back. Like, you see that the word is with the music that fits the rhythm of the movement itself.
כל הכבוד.
I'm going to jump a little bit. The child by himself is leaning there, but let's go here. Yeah.
בוא נעשה הליכה חתול ככה. יכול ללכת ככה כמוני? ככה.
And now Ohad walks on his fours to show him what happens. And you must understand that since the teacher is so much involved in this communication, you can't say that he planned it ahead of time. He did, maybe somebody else will do something different. It's not a planned program for the lesson, but it has lines and connections. Look here, how do you, it's cut. Now I think in terms of Ohad, it's a moment that he doesn't know what to do, but he feels very comfortable just being there. Sometimes do what the child do, sometimes tilt, but it's not imitating like now I'm going to imitate you. It's something that he really feels in himself. He's curious, Ohad on his side. I think that the brainstem of Ohad also works quite a lot here. And there is kind of touch which is maybe not focused with the eyes, but it's very much there. I really want you to look at this moment that seems to be wasting of time, so you will appreciate that maybe things happening, we just don't know what. And to be a good teacher, you really need to learn how to be safe when you don't know what.
דרך. מה? רגל? רגל?
And now you see they came back to the lengthening of the layers, not exactly, not to, and now look what happens. Avichai moves to a different place. And Ohad thinks he wants to go home. So he looks at him and says, you want to go home? And Avichai is waiting for him. He said, you want us to go back to what we did, and it was in the same place. And look, now here also what happens. Ohad say, לפתוח, let's go. Close, open and close. לפתוח, let's go. And suddenly a sound. And he goes look somewhere else. Let's go. And now that's very strange because first of all he said לפתוח and Ohad was shocked because he never spoke before in the lesson. And he said, what do you say? But he was quite connected not to do a ceremony out of that. And he continued. And then Ohad speaks, keeps talking to him. לפתוח, let's go. It comes with the music, with the sound, with the movement. And the beginning of the child, Ohad says, lif. He said, toach, like babies do. And then he says, לפתוח, and the child said, ulisgo. Ulisgo in Hebrew is high level of saying and close. Because it's not the usual. Some letters get the u instead of ve. And suddenly it comes from where? You see what he's doing? He's now moving Ohad. Suddenly he pushes feet in between the knees of Ohad, and he is doing that, and Ohad gets it, so he is ready to get the order from him. And he's doing what he says.
تمام.
You see, you learn Hebrew by that lesson. Finished, and then he goes to his shoes, he put them on. You don't need to see that. It's interesting, but that. So I think we've put together our case, but we rested our case. But for me, it's really, really important. When I teach people. I teach now, I have training in Israel and Italy and in Japan. For many years I train people to do this method. And one of the very important things that, and difficult to do with people to do that profession, is tell them, when you understand finally something of all that, don't try that you're going to deliver your knowledge to your students by your understanding. You need to go down or wherever, let's say brainstem, but somewhere, and connect to the other person through that, because this goes very well. It's built for that. And the communication there is unique. I think it's very much needed to be studied in neurophysiology, but it's a rich communication. It's not one level, let's say, not anyway. And since it is like this, it is very easy from there to create different ideas, different movement, and the brain is very good at that. If you read what Nikolai Bernstein wrote many years before, in the 30s, says that's what the brain knows. Learn a pattern, put it somewhere, and then modify it for the new situation with all this, I don't have the word now, but the organic use of the whole self. That's what we do in Feldenkrais. I want to say one more thing. When I collaborate with physical therapists and other professions, many times I see that the limitation on the professional side is that because of the social regime they are being put, they lose their identity as people, and they communicate with the child many times in these angles that they measured, in the targets that they need to reach, and they themselves suffer. I know from talking to them that they need to separate from themselves when they work. We do just the opposite. Thank you.
What an amazing lesson in autonomy, in agency, respecting that, and that's what the motor code gives us, the ability to give and take, to explore, to be exploratory rather than having a set goal ahead of time, which then ruins it for both people. And what we saw there was precisely that. The child is in control, and he dictates what needs to be done, and the teacher learns and gives back, and it's a give and take entrainment, and that's what we're looking for. That's what this conference is about, because it creates a language, not a spoken language, but the most basic language that we can ever afford as a human being when we come to the world.